Hello everyone. I'm Xiao Yue from Susan's family. Today, I'm going to introduce a versatile brooch to you. It's a travel version. It has multiple functions. You can use it as a brooch by attaching a brooch clasp, add a magnet and it becomes a fridge magnet. Pair it with a paperclip and it can be used as a bookmark. You can also attach a thumbtack to use it for notes. And it comes with a leather cord. It can also be made into a necklace or bracelet. If you want to purchase the original materials kit and receive crocheting guidance, please search for the store Susan's family to reach the shop directly. Now, let's get started. This brooch comes in 4 different shapes. They are the envelope, radio, house, and camera. The brooch is made up of the main piece and accessories. The accessories are divided into functional accessories and decorative accessories. Our kit includes 3 types of functional accessories: brooch clasp, magnets, and leather cords. You can also add paper clips and thumbtacks to give it more functionality. When making the brooch, you start by crocheting the main piece. After it's completed, you attach the accessories and sew together the main piece. Next, let's learn the crocheting method for the main piece. The main piece is divided into 2 sections. The first section is this rectangle. The camera design only has the first section. The other 3 second sections are as follows: the envelope's triangle shape, the radio's antenna and buttons, and the house's chimney. Because of the different color segments in the fancy dyed lace yarn, the finished product effect will vary. You can choose based on your own preference. You can also refer to the finished product pictures and use similar colors for making. Note that when making the first part of the house and camera, you should start crocheting on the fancy dyed lace yarn from the beginning of a color segment. Let me demonstrate how to take the yarn. Find the starting position of a color. Cut the yarn. Use the remaining yarn to crochet. Next, I will demonstrate the crocheting of the first part. Let's start by looking at the chart. For the first part, we will start from the foundation chain. Crochet in rounds counterclockwise along the starting chain. The stitches used include chain stitch, CH, single crochet, SC, and slip stitch, SL. Now, let me demonstrate the specific crocheting method. Before we start crocheting, let's learn the proper posture for crocheting to make it easier for everyone to see clearly. Here, I will use thick yarn for the demonstration. The colors are random for the specific yarns used in all subsequent crocheting, as well as the hook sizes. Please refer to the detail page of our product and the paper instructions. Let's start with casting on. Hold the yarn tail with your right hand. Wrap the yarn tail around your left little finger. Pass it through between your middle finger and index finger. Then, pinch the yarn tail with your thumb and middle finger. Pick up the crochet hook with your right hand. The hook moves between these 2 points. Place the hook below the yarn. Wrap the yarn counterclockwise. Pinch the crossing point of the loop with your left thumb and middle finger. Put your hook above the yarn. Yarn over. Draw the yarn through the loop. This slip knot does not count as a stitch. Pull tight directly. Pay attention to this loop on the hook. Don't tighten it too much, otherwise, it will be difficult to crochet later. Now start crocheting chain stitches. Yarn over. Draw the yarn through. 1 chain stitch is completed. This V shape formed by the slip stitch counts as 1 stitch. Continue crocheting chain stitches. Yarn over. Draw the yarn through. This is the second stitch. Repeat this process. Continue crocheting chain stitches all the way down to the required number of stitches. Refer to the chart for the exact stitch count. I have completed the last stitch of my sample swatch. Let's take a look. This is what it looks like after completing the foundation chain. Next, we will start the first round. Work 1 chain stitch as the turning chain for the single crochet. The turning chain does not count as a stitch. To make it less noticeable, we'll slightly tighten this stitch. Then, work 1 single crochet. Insert the hook from right to left into the half loop on the top of the second chain stitch. It looks like this strand of yarn. Yarn over and draw the yarn through. Now there are 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over again, and draw through both loops on the hook. 1 single crochet is completed. This is the first stitch. After completing it, continue on the next chain stitch on the left side, and work 1 single crochet. Insert the hook into the adjacent chain, stitch half loop on the top. Yarn over and draw the yarn through. Now there are 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over and draw through both loops. Another single crochet is completed. Now 2 single crochets have been completed. Continue with the remaining chain stitches on the left side, working 1 single crochet into each stitch. Keep going until the second to last chain stitch on the left. After completing it, on the last chain stitch, work 2 single crochets. 1, 2. Then rotate the beginning chain. Insert the hook into the same hole, which means picking up the remaining 2 strands of the chain stitch. Work a single crochet. This way, in this hole, we have worked 3 single crochets. For the remaining chain stitches on the left side, continue to pick up these 2 strands, which is where the previous single crochet was inserted. Correspondingly, make single crochets all the way to the second to last stitch of this end. While crocheting, you can place the yarn tail of the cast on over your hook, hiding it as you work. Once done, work 2 single crochets in the last stitch. Including the starting stitch. That works 3 single crochets in this hole. Match up with the other end. If there's any remaining starting yarn tail at this point, you can cut it off directly. After completing, you can check the stitch count. Let's take a look. Each of these represents 1 stitch. Corresponding to the top, there is a V-shaped loop. This corresponds to the single crochet stitch. The number of these stitches indicates how many stitches you have worked. You can refer to the chart here. Check the stitch counts. Pay attention to avoid extra or missing stitches. Next, let's take a look. On the left side, there is a smaller braid adjacent here. This is a turning chain. Since the turning chain doesn't count as a stitch, skip it here. go directly to the next braid, which is the first stitch of this round. Make a slip stitch. Insert the hook into the stitch. Yarn over, draw the yarn through. Pull through all the loops on the hook in once. That completes the slip stitch. Let's take a look. This is the V shape formed by the slip stitch. The slip stitch doesn't count as a stitch. To make it less noticeable, to prevent adding extra stitches later, we'll tighten it directly. After this, the first round is completed. Now let's work on the second round. Start with one chain stitch as the turning chain for the single crochet. Note that the turning chain doesn't count as a stitch. Slightly tighten it. Make sure to tighten all subsequent turning chains. I won't repeat this in the following steps. Now, work one single crochet. Continue picking up the left side stitches, and correspondingly make one single crochet. The crochet pattern for this round is to pick up the stitches from the previous round and correspondingly work single crochets. We follow this pattern to complete this round. Now, we have correspondingly finished the last stitch. As you can see, here, there are two smaller braids. This one is the slip stitch from the previous round, and this one is the turning chain for this round. Do not crochet on these, or you will end up with extra stitches. Next, pick up the braid on the left side, which is the first stitch of this round. Make one slip stitch. The slip stitch here does not count as a stitch. Tighten it. For all the slip stitches after this, make sure to pull tight directly once completed. I won't repeat this in the following steps. This completes the second round. Now let's differentiate the right side from the wrong side. Let's take a look. The side with more distinct texture on the fabric is the right side. The other side, with less distinct texture, is the wrong side. While crocheting, keep the right side facing you. For the remaining part of the main body, the crocheting method is the same as the second round. At the beginning of each round, start with a chain stitch as the turning chain. Pull the turning chain tight, then work single crochets evenly. Finally, work a slip stitch into the first stitch. Pay attention to pull the slip stitch tight as well. Next, everyone refer to the previous method to complete the remaining crochet work. For the radio and envelope shapes, the method is quite simple, so I won't continue demonstrating. Just remember, when crocheting the camera and house, you need to switch colors around the sixth round. Let me demonstrate the color changing method using a small sample. After completing the sixth round, secure with a chain stitch. Enlarge the loop. Break the yarn. Then on the fancy dyed lace, choose your favorite color segment. Start crocheting from the beginning of that color segment. Here, I'll demonstrate using cotton yarn with random colors. Wrap the yarn around your left hand. Make a slip knot. And insert the hook into the first stitch of the sixth round. Draw the yarn through. Slightly tighten it. And that completes the color change. Make a chain stitch as the turning chain. Then tighten it. Pick up each stitch and work single crochets correspondingly. While crocheting, manage the 2 yarn tails by hiding them as you go. Up to this point, the explanation of changing colors is completed. Next, I'll show you how to count rounds. Let's take a look. On the right side of the fabric, there is a round of raised texture. The number of rounds with raised textures indicates how many rounds have been completed. We can count upwards from the beginning chain. After you finish crocheting, check the number of rounds by referring to the pattern. Up to this point, the first part of the crocheting is completed. At the same time, the main body of the camera has also been completed. After completion, leave about 30 centimeters of yarn tail. For sewing, the remaining 3 shapes do not require leaving yarn tails. You can simply break the yarn. Next, let's learn the crocheting for the second part. First, we'll learn the second part of the envelope shape. The shape here is similar to a triangle. We use back and forth crocheting. By decreasing stitches at the beginning and ending of each row, we gradually form the triangle shape, in addition to the stitch techniques used previously. Here we also use the single crochet decrease, and the single crochet 3 stitches together. Now I'll demonstrate the specific crocheting method. I'll use a small swatch for this demonstration. First, fold the fabric along the foundation chain line. Make sure the side with the slip stitch marks is facing you. Start crocheting from the first stitch on the far right. The first row requires 11 single crochets. First, pick up the corresponding yarn. For this demonstration, I'll use cotton yarn. The colors are random. For the finished product, continue crocheting with the previous yarn. Make a slip knot with the yarn. Insert the slip knot into the crochet hook. Pull it through. Slightly tighten it. Then make a chain stitch as the turning chain for the single crochet. Next, work a single crochet. While crocheting, hide the yarn tail. Work single crochets into each stitch below, one by one. 2, 3, This completes the first row. Now start the second row. For this row, decrease at the beginning and end. Begin with a chain stitch as the turning chain. Tighten it. When working back and forth, turn the fabric piece. Turn the fabric piece counterclockwise. Face the side of the fabric with the openings toward yourself. Then, in the stitches below, start with a single crochet decrease. Insert the hook into the next stitch below. Yarn over. Draw the yarn through. This is an incomplete single crochet. Next, pick up the adjacent stitch. Work another incomplete single crochet. Yarn over. Draw the yarn through. Now you have 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over, and draw through 3 loops in once. This completes a single crochet decrease. Continue to work single crochets into each stitch below. Work all the way down to the third to last stitch. Now you have the last 2 stitches remaining. You need to work a single crochet decrease here. Pick up each stitch and work an incomplete single crochet. 1, 2. Finally, yarn over, and draw through all the loops on the hook. This completes a single crochet decrease. At the same time, the second row is also completed. Now start working on the third row. Begin with a chain stitch as the turning chain. Turn the fabric piece counterclockwise. Place the side of the fabric without the opening facing you. This row also requires a decrease at the beginning and end. Start with a single crochet decrease. Work single crochets into each stitch below, one by one. Continue all the way down to the third to last stitch. Now there are only 2 stitches left. Make a single crochet decrease. This completes the third row. For the following rows, refer to the chart. Continue to complete the fourth and fifth rows. The technique is the same as for the previous 2 rows. Decreases are made at the beginning and end of each row. Work single crochets into each stitch in the middle, one by one. Pay attention that after completing each row and making the turning chain, you need to turn the fabric piece counterclockwise. I won't demonstrate this part here. After completion, we will move on to the 6th row. For this row, you need to make a single crochet decrease of 3 stitches into 1. Start with a chain stitch as the turning chain. Turn the fabric piece. Pick up the 3 single crochet stitches from this row. Work 3 incomplete single crochets into each of them separately. 1, 2, 3. Now there are 4 loops on the hook. Yarn over, and draw through once. This completes 1 single crochet decrease of 3 stitches into 1. It's done now. The crocheting of envelope second section is now finished. Finally, pull up the loop to enlarge it. Leave a yarn tail of about 30 centimeters for sewing. Break the yarn. This is what the main part of the envelope shape looks like when completed. Next, let's learn how to crochet the second part of the radio. Here, I will use a pre-made sample for demonstration. First, take the fabric. Fold the fabric along the line where you started crocheting. Make sure the side without slip stitch marks is facing you. Start crocheting from the first stitch on the far right. Pick up the corresponding yarn. Here, I will use cotton yarn for demonstration. The color is random. Let's start with the antenna. Make a chain stitch as the turning chain. Pull tight. Then work 2 single crochets. While crocheting, hide the yarn tail. Next, make 5 chain stitches. After completing them, let's identify the right and wrong sides of the chain stitch. The right side of the chain stitch has individual braid-like loops. In the middle of the back, there are strands of carried yarn. This is the wrong side of the chain stitch. Start with a chain stitch as the turning chain. Pull tight. Then pick up the wrong side of the chain stitch and make a slip stitch. Start by picking up the 5th wrong side loop to crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For this slip stitch, do not to pull too tight. Continue crocheting downward. The following slip stitches still do not need to be tightened. This concludes the crocheting of the antenna. After completion, continue on the stitch below on the left side. And work 3 single crochets corresponding to each stitch. Next, I will demonstrate how to crochet the button. Start with 2 chain stitches. Then make 1 chain stitch as the turning chain. Pull tight. Then pick up the wrong side of the chain stitch and make 2 slip stitches. These 2 slip stitches do not need to be tightened. This way, we have completed 1 button. After completion, continue to pick up the stitches below and work 2 single crochets corresponding to each stitch. The crochet pattern for the remaining part of this round is: make 1 button every 2 single crochets. A total of 4 buttons need to be crocheted. After completing the buttons, continue to work single crochets corresponding to each stitch. Refer to the chart for the exact number of stitches. Pay attention during the crocheting process, ensuring that the right side of the piece always faces you. After completion, leave a yarn tail of about 30 centimeters for sewing. Cut the yarn. This is what the main body of the radio looks like when finished. For the starting and crocheting of the second part of the house, you can refer to the crochet method used for the radio antenna. First, find the starting stitch. Then work a single crochet. Next, make 3 chain stitches. Then create a chain stitch as the turning chain. Pick up the chain stitches from the wrong side and work 3 slip stitches. Then work single crochets into each stitch in sequence. The method is quite simple. I won't demonstrate it here. After completion, leave a yarn tail of about 30 centimeters for sewing. Up to this point, the crocheting of the main body is completely finished. Next, we will learn how to attach accessories. Here, we will start by attaching decorative accessories. Each shape has different accessories. The envelope shape has only 1 button. The radio has 2 buttons and some decorative strands. The house shape has only some decorative strands. The camera has 2 buttons, one large and one small, and 3 decorative strands. Next, I'll demonstrate the attachment of the radio decoration using a sample swatch. For the radio accessory attachment, first, pick up the fabric like this. With the antenna on the right side, the accessory is attached on the side facing you. First, slightly above the center position, sew a rectangle. The length is about 3 single crochets, and the width is approximately 2 rounds. After completing this, in the middle of this width on the left side, sew a small line segment horizontally. The color of this line segment can be chosen based on your preference. On the fancy dyed lace, cut a line segment of about 30 centimeters. Here, I'm using thick yarn for the demonstration. The color is random. Sew between the middle position of the 4th round and the 6th round. Start by leaving a little yarn tail inside. After completing this, sew the small line segment in the middle of the rectangle. Next, on the 2nd round below, sew 4 small vertical line segments. Thread the yarn from the 3rd single crochet on the left side. Come out between the 4th and the 3rd single crochet. Sew the first small line segment. Then, at a distance of 2 single crochets on the right side, sew the 2nd small line segment. For the next 2 line segments, sew them also at a distance of 2 single crochets from the previous segment. Finally, take the yarn and tie it off with the starting yarn tail inside. Cut the yarn. This completes the sewing of the decorative strands for the radio. After completing, sew 2 buttons onto the 2 sides of the rectangle. Here, choose the yarn that matches the fabric. For sewing, use a finer needle for sewing. First, split the thread. Divide it into 2 thinner strands. Take 1 strand for sewing. Bring the needle out through one hole of the button. Leave a little yarn tail inside. Insert the needle through another hole. Sew several times like this. Then, follow the same method too. Sew the other button. Finally, tie the ending yarn tail with the starting yarn tail. Trim off the excess thread. Let's take a look. This is the radio shape. This is what it looks like after the decorative strands and buttons are attached. Now, let me explain how to attach the decorative strands for the house shape. For this shape, you need to sew on doors and windows with yarn. Refer to the chart for specific yarn options. Next, let me explain the sewing technique. Hold the fabric like this. With the chimney on the right side, the doors and windows should be sewn on the side facing us. The door is sewn on the left side, with its height being the distance between the first round and the 8th round. The width is approximately the distance of 3 single crochets. Sew 3 sides of a rectangle at the corresponding position like this. For the window, sew between the 4th round and the 6th round, 2 single crochets away from the right edge. When making it, first sew a square. Then add a stitch in the middle of the square. Sew a cross in the middle of the square. Leave a little yarn tail at the beginning. After sewing, tie the end of the thread with the starting thread. Next, let's look at the camera. The camera has 2 buttons, one large and one small, and 3 decorative strands. Here, I will demonstrate how to sew on the small button. The small button is sewn in the top right corner of the fabric. Since the buttonholes are small, use a finer sewing needle for this. First, choose yarn that matches the fabric. Cut about 15 centimeters of yarn. Split the yarn strands. Pull out one strand. Thread it through the sewing needle. Next, take out the button. Place the button with its textured side facing you. Position the button in the corresponding location. Align the 2 buttonholes horizontally like this. First, insert the sewing needle through one of the buttonholes. Leave a little yarn tail inside. Then, insert it through the other hole. Sew back and forth a few times like this. Once done, tie the yarn tail off. Cut the excess yarn. That's how you sew on a small button. Next, I'll explain how to attach the other decorative accessories. For the larger button, sew it slightly to the left of the middle. This button has 4 holes. When sewing, cross the threads like this. For a better look, 3 decorative strands are sewn in the upper left corner. The decorative strands are on the fancy dyed lace. Choose your favorite colors. Cut 3 segments of yarn about 10 centimeters long. Sew them on as shown. The method to handle the yarn tails is the same as before. I won't go over it again. The installation of the envelope-shaped button needs to be done after the main body is sewn together. I will demonstrate this after completing the main body sewing. Up to this point, the explanation of decorative accessories concludes. Next, I will demonstrate the installation of functional accessories. Let me start with the brooch clasp installation. The brooch clasp is installed on the side of the fabric without decorative accessories. Here, I will use a radio-shaped design as an example to demonstrate. Choose a thread that matches the fabric. Cut about 20 centimeters of thread. Thread the needle with the chosen thread. Next, place the brooch clasp horizontally in a position slightly above the center, with the pin side facing left. Then insert the needle from the right hole and bring it out. Leave a little yarn tail inside. Insert the needle into the fabric from above the hole. Then bring it out from the same hole again. Then insert the needle into the fabric from below the hole. Bring the needle out through another hole. The sewing method below is the same as for the previous hole. To make the brooch clasp more secure, you can sew a few times using the same method. I won't demonstrate this here. Finally, tie off the yarn tail. Break the yarn. This completes the attachment of the brooch clasp. Finally, let me introduce the installation of the remaining 2 functional accessories. For the magnet, you can simply place it inside the fabric. For the leather cord, first attach the small silver ring in the proper position. Then insert the leather cord through the small ring. Finally, trim the cord to the appropriate length and cut it. Tie off the end to finish. If you have a paper clip at home, you can also add a paper clip to the bottom of the fabric. If you want to install a thumbtack, simply place the thumbtack inside the fabric. Push the pin from the side without decorative strands, and exit through the other side. Up to this point, the installation of accessories is completed. Next, I will demonstrate the sewing of the main piece. First, let me demonstrate the sewing of the envelope-shaped main body. Thread the reserved yarn tail into the yarn needle. Fold down this triangle to cover the opening. Sew this corner to the corresponding position on the bottom fabric. Pay attention not to sew through to the wrong side of the fabric. You can sew this part a few times for reinforcement. This completes the sewing of the envelope main body. Do not cut off the remaining yarn tail yet. Next, I will demonstrate attaching the buttons. Since the holes in the buttons are small, use a finer sewing needle for this task. You can take the remaining thread from the main piece and divide it into 2 thinner strands at the middle. Take one of these strands, hide it along the texture of the fabric. Thread the remaining strand into a sewing needle. It might be a bit tricky to thread the yarn here, so try a few times if needed. Next, take out the button. Place the side of the button with raised and indented parts facing you. Position the button on this corner. Align the 2 holes horizontally like this. First, insert the sewing needle through one hole of the button from underneath. Then, insert it through the other hole from above. Then insert the sewing needle into the corresponding position on the fabric. You can sew through a few times like this to make the button more secure. Finally, hide the thread along the texture of the fabric. You can do this several times for added security. I won't demonstrate this part further. This is what it looks like after the button is securely sewn on. Up to this point, the installation of the decorative accessories on the envelope and its assembly with the main piece is completed. The sewing of the other 3 main pieces uses the whip stitch method. Here, I'll demonstrate using the radio as an example. First, thread the reserved yarn tail through the sewing needle. Then fold the fabric in half, aligning the stitches on both sides as closely as possible. Place the side with the antenna facing you. Next, insert the sewing needle into the first stitch from the front and bring it out through the corresponding stitch at the back. Sew a couple of extra stitches at the first stitch. This ensures it's more secure. Then insert the needle into the next adjacent stitch, on the left from the front, and bring it out through the corresponding stitch at the back. This is the whip stitch method. Continue picking up and sewing each stitch one by one as you move down. Keep going until all stitches are sewn. Pay attention when you encounter the antenna or buttons. You need to thread the yarn from behind the antenna or button, bringing it to the front. Continue sewing. And note that the stitches around the antenna and buttons are smaller. Be mindful not to miss any. At the last stitch, sew a couple of extra times for added security. Finally, hide the yarn tail along the texture of the fabric. You can split the yarn tail. And weave it into the texture of the fabric. Tie the yarn tails together in a knot. Repeat this process a few times for added security. I won't demonstrate this further here. Up to this point, the sewing of the main body of the radio has been fully explained. The sewing of the remaining two shapes' main bodies can refer to the previous demonstrations. First, fold the fabric in half, aligning the stitches carefully. Then, sew from front to back. Pick up the corresponding stitches and sew them together. The method is quite simple. I won't demonstrate this further here. Up to this point, the sewing of the main body has been fully explained. At the same time, the making of the travel brooch is now completely finished. If you have any unclear points during the crocheting process, please contact our customer service. Susan's family, supporting your handwork experience, sharing the joy of life. Thank you all for watching. See you next time.